the UK seems, likes to see itself as. It was not until 1997 that we managed to get the European Union to legally recognize animals as sentient beings, that they can feel pain, that they can suffer, and that their well-being should be taken into account when framing legislation. So, there is so much to do on every front, on every continent of the world. And, the important thing is for us to make sure that we take the steps that are within our reach, that are within our grasp, and that we never stop walking, that each day we take another step for animals. We're making progress. It's a long road. We will get there.
Do you remember a few years ago when Oprah made some remark about cattle or ranchers or something on her show about the mistreatment of them, and they sued her? Do you remember that in the United States? Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I do. And, this is, one of the things that we're up against is that you're often telling it the way it is
marginalizing, I would
difficult.
Imagine.
Yeah, it's difficult because of the way that often the way the law is framed. But we have to remember that we've got a huge weight of evidence, a weight of truth on our side. Increasingly people are waking up to the fact that animals are living creatures with their own sense of well-being, that what happens to them matters to them, and that also people are making the connection that to factory farm animals and cause them suffering is not only wrong ethically for what we do to the animal, but it also harms ourselves. It harms public health, it harms the environment, and it undermines our very food security. I talked about 2 out of 3 farm animals being kept in factory farms being grain-fed. Well, it might be all right, arguably, to grain-feed animals if they gave you back as much food protein as they take, as they consume. But actually, you know what? Animals in factory farms are protein factories in reverse. On average, across all species, on average, for every 1 pound, for every 1 kilo of meat that you get out of a factory farm, it takes 6 pounds or 6 kilos of grain to get that amount. And if you put all of the grain that is being grown to feed to factory farmed animals in one place, it would cover an area the size of half of the United States.
Wow.
Or in my region, the entire European Union, 27 countries. That is how much grain we are wasting through farm animals every year. It's shocking.
It's hard to believe that the way animals are treated and fed, that this is sustainable. This is against sustainability.
It's not sustainable. But hey, this is where we have to take heart, because we know the statistics that by the middle of the century, by 2050, there will be in the order of 9 billion people instead of the current 7 billion. You're probably aware that the United Nations predict that with the growth in population and a growth in consumption of meat and dairy products worldwide, that we're likely to see a doubling of the farm animal population. So about 120 billion farm animals reared and slaughtered every year by mid-century. All of that comes at a time when land will get ever more scarce because climate change will see to it that the sea will come up and land will disappear.
I have to just say this to you so you know where I stand on this. Last year, I would have agreed with you. I would have totally agreed with you about that. After spending 200 hours on climate change, I now don't agree with that particular position. I know that that's what the propaganda is. That's what we've been told, but I did a deep level investigation into this, and I don't accept it anymore. So as part of the basis, I want you not to worry. The sea will not rise. We are in a cooling period, actually, right now.
That's interesting.
As you will see. Yeah, I'll send you those links to the shows I did. It'll blow your mind. I did every facet of climate. CO2, the nature of it, sea levels, how they're usually tested, the difference between computer modeling and actual facts. Polar bears, the greenhouse gases, volcanism, how this whole thing with climate change started, the cyclical thing, the hockey stick, you name it, I did it. So Don't worry about that for the animals. I want to relieve you of the concern. I know it's what the going thing is, and if you dare say anything, you're a denier. But if you get into the facts of how climate is usually examined over cycles, and actually what was the machine that got this communication called climate change not being a cycle and that CO2 is the demon, you'll feel very differently. I know I did last year. If you would have told me this last year, I probably would have said you hate the earth, but I know differently now. I love the earth and I love animals so much.
I love your optimism on that. But let me just continue the theme. We'll move on from that.
Please do.
One thing we know is that, the earth isn't getting much bigger. And the popular consensus, let's put it that way, in scientific community, is that the planet's warming up and we're going over the concept of peak oil, peak land, that land is going to get more scarce. We also know that oil is running out. It's a finite resource. Now, what's oil got to do with factory farming? Well,
not in the U.S., by the way. It's not running out. Prudhoe Bay has 200 years of oil that they won't release to the public, and that's a fact. But anyway, I just wanted you to know about the U.S. We're set here in the U.S.
Yeah. Well, you've got to remember that it's a finite resource. It will run out at some point worldwide, and that industrial agriculture uses oil aplenty, to the fact that one academic has put it that industrial agriculture is basically turning petrochemicals into food. We use it for the artificial fertilizers, for the chemical pesticides, and all the paraphernalia that goes with it.
Indeed.
So we're using a lot of oil, and we know that that's going to run out. And at the same time, we know that water is becoming ever more scarce. 2 billion people are in areas of water scarcity worldwide right now.
Right.
By 2050, that could be something between 4 billion and 7 billion. Again, factory farming uses a lot of water. So, using popular scientific opinion now, Kim, what we're looking at by mid-century is a resource-hungry regime called factory farming in a world where there'll be more people, more animals, less land, less oil, and less water. And by any analysis, that simply won't add up.
I agree with you. Absolutely agree with you.
And that is why we need to move to a new model of sustainability. And people say to me, well, how are we going to invent this new type of farming? Well, we don't need to reinvent the wheel here, because the kind of human scale farming that we're going to need tomorrow is with us today. It's just under huge threat from the rampant march of factory farming, and that's why we got to stop it.
How much do you think, Philip, that Monsanto, with their genetically modified food and organisms, they're filing patents on pigs, they already did, and other animals, they've filed patents on the molecular structure of seeds. How does this play into what the animals are fed? Do you have an opinion about that, or do you have a stance on that?
Well, I think that the use of biotechnology to control the food system, if that's what is happening and where that is happening, is a worrying development. We need to make sure that we don't rob local people, particularly in developing countries, of the ability to feed themselves. We don't want corporate activity to get in the way of people feeding ourselves. And there's another thing, actually, that factory farming actually, the common argument is that factory farming gives you cheap food. And it does, apparently, if you don't take into account the public health impacts, the environmental impacts, and those kind of things. But by hoovering up so much grain, 1 in every 3 grains harvested in the world every year are used to feed factory farmed animals. Now, that's fact. And some denominations of grain cereals, it's a higher value than that. But 1 in 3 average of the grain harvest used to feed factory farmed animals. What that does in a world of ever greater